what he's really done to deserve that 2-year contract when we could assess him properly at the end of the season and answer that question with certainty. Because let me say one thing, managers in the first half of the season, let's say the first 28 games of the season, can become very, very different managers to how they end up in the last 10 games.
Literally.
Because
it's
completely different. It's completely different pressure. And this is where I thought Arsene Wenger was very good. He generally was very consistent in the way that he was. Famously, we saw Kevin Keegan, who, when that change is perceived in a squad, it induces panic, it induces nervousness. And it's about the managers that can kind of keep calm waters and that sort of thing.
Right.
We don't know whether Arteta can do that because the last 2 full seasons he's had, we finished 8th. There was nothing riding on those last 10 games. This season, we might see someone who's consummately at ease with pressure, or we might see someone unravel.
You see, that's where I'm at, because I do think there's intense pressure on his job. But then I look at it, we're told, obviously you can have a good relationship with your manager. Your manager might still clip you, but he has a very good relationship with the Cronkies. Now, I look at that. If we had a more demanding manager, a more household name, he might not accept anything. But if I'm honest with you, it's a relationship of mutual interest. There's not too much pressure from the board on Mikel. Where Mikel, let's be honest, he's in a role where there's not too much pressure and he gets to develop. Personally, I think that's why he's not really. He can do things like more so Ozil and that, but today do what he's doing with Aubameyang, with what we've spoken about. Because if you was Chelsea with Lukaku, Tuchel might want to not play him ever again, but he needs to realize I might have to utilize him. If you could do things like that, that tells me maybe there's not necessarily a target per se for the season. And I know many people would say, well, not too many people had us in top 4, let alone top 6, and they're true, but things change throughout a season when you find yourselves in positions. I know it's not the best of examples, but when Leicester won the league, I'm sure in August they didn't sit there and say we're going for the league. Something fell in their lap. They ran with it, and look where they're at. It's like, I do feel there's really no balance with Mikel Arteta, with Arsenal, with just speaking about us. You either overcompensate and find a lot of excuses, or you scapegoat. And that's what I'm going to see with Arteta, because you're going to need to play the game. You're going to need to reintegrate Pepe. You need to do something with Aubameyang if you're not going to play him. I'm keen to see what midfield is, because I don't feel we've got the strongest of foundations. And as much as me and you have banged on about midfielders, probably by the time we play Wolves, bro, everyone's back. Partey, Xhaka, El Nene, they'll be back. We love a new season stuff. So I'm not too sure, man, what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's going to be a really, really interesting end to the season and to see what happens. But, right now, what Arteta is trying to do, what I've seen in January with this Lacazette vacating his role and almost the false 9 attempt, you don't have the personnel to do that.
Facts.
Yeah. And it becomes, like, I think with this whole, with the way we're trying to play right now, with that false 9, you have to, I think, have unbelievably good, intelligent players who know when to move. And you need to be very good at that system. I think it's a longer thing to implement. I don't think it's the right time necessarily to do that with the personnel that we've got right now, because you're at the business end of the season. And we haven't been playing like that all season. This is, for me, in response to what's happened with Aubameyang. Lacazette needs stricter instruction in terms of, the plan B, and we need to be quicker at switching to the plan B. False 9 not working against Burnley, go to the traditional setup. Lacazette, stay central.
Thanks.
And I think Mikel Arteta, I'm not saying don't be true to your principles or don't be true to the strategy that you want to go and get long term. Bit more pragmatism, and a bit more adaptable in terms of let's go and secure the 3 points. Top 4 is so important to us this year.
You made a good point about fluidity and adaptability and things, and I'm going to credit the manager. Obviously, I do think there's a lot of things he's improved. I think there's more stability in his defense. I think there's less handbrakes going forward. We're still very left-hand centric. We're still quite predictable to read. We still can't really break down low blocks. But I always find myself being a bit of a devil's advocate and thinking to myself, at the back of my head, anything that I've seen with Arteta now, since we've turned a corner or something, Are these actual plans, or are we quote unquote stumbling on it? Because to be fair, he kept playing Aubameyang. You know, I think that was a sign of good man management. You know, he could have been dropped for the Spurs game. He played quite well against Spurs, and the young players who people were saying to drop were there. And then I feel there was a bit of Lacazette. Lacazette was one that he was becoming one that you couldn't keep out the side. I think he came on and did well against Crystal Palace, and then to go with Aubameyang, just him wanting to keep him in, and Lacazette, I think we found the 4-4-2. Now, as you've seen and said, with Aubameyang misbehaving, quote unquote, you know, we've taken him out and we're doing this lack of thing. So do you think any of these things are coordinated and he's actively going for some these things, which is scary, or are we're kind of quote unquote stumbling across these things?
Yeah, it's hard for it to be coordinated when like there's discipline issues, isn't there? You know, this is obviously something that just happens and you have to react to. But now what I see as a coordinated thing is this false 9 attempt. And this is where I'm saying, like, look, I'm sorry, I don't have the belief that we're going to be able to execute this very difficult footballing strategy in such a short timeline at the business end of the season.
Right.
You know, unfortunately, Burnley have just displayed the model on how to combat that. Anyone looking at Arsenal now saying, all right, this is the Arsenal squad is very easy to predict because of our lack of numbers. So people are going to say that's what we're going to be up against. And I know some will come back after AFCON, but I don't expect Pepe to all of a sudden come in the team and Arteta to mix it up. I think it's quite easy to predict. And then I think it's a case of, we know what we need to do to stay in the game. So
this is it.
This is where Arteta needs to earn his money and prove his ability. And why not use this period to inform the decision of giving him a new contract? It seems very strange to give him a new contract now. But
facts.
You know, also, if you look at the wider context of the club, it's a lot of inexperienced people. Vinay's not experienced in his position. Edu's not experienced in his. Mikel's not experienced in his. Across the pitch, they're not experienced in their positions. And it also seems to me like
facts.
I'm not against all of it, but it seems like this season at Arsenal, a lot of inexperienced people have been potentially, the argument could be they're given more than what they should have got at the stage that they're at.
Facts,
Smith-Rowe, I'm a huge fan of him. I love the guy. I think he's a fantastic footballer. He was given the number 10 shirt. I don't mind that because, you know, he's a hair lender. We're giving him that sort of seal of approval. We're giving him that confidence. But if someone says to me, you know, is there an argument that he should have had to have done more to get that number 10 shirt? I'd say, yeah, I see that.
100%.
I see that point. Yeah. Vinay getting that job, Edu getting that job, Mikel getting that job, all of them, they've got quite a lot quite soon. Should they have potentially needed to have done more? Prove their
more duties boost as well, year in, year out, if I'm honest.
Prove themselves more? I think yes. Mikel Arteta going from head coach to manager. What did he really do? He got that after about 9 months of his tenure.
Getting the Arsenal job in the first place as well, if we're honest.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. So not only getting it in the first place, but then also getting the promotion. Have you really done enough? So people seem to be getting, like Josh Kroenke is the best example of it. What the hell have you done? Do you know what I mean?
You're just lucky he was born into a rich family, really, and that's your dad.
So I'm saying, is there really a true meritocracy? Are we really making these sort of like gifts? Are we making people really earn them, or are inexperienced people creating a very easy life for one another here in terms of how easy it is to get that next rung up? And this is my point about Mikel Arteta's contract, because it seems like in keeping with that, where I want Arsenal to be a little bit more sort of, no, you've really got to excel consistently.
A healthy sense of pressure.
Yeah.
You said it there, and that's what I think as well. And that was my point earlier, in that I think it's of mutual interest. I do think Arteta presses the issue of needing players and things, but it's almost like a little kid. Like when you're a little kid, you're asking your mum for something, your mum says no, and then it is what it is. I think the more experienced managers will put pressure. So I think the board and Arteta, it's of mutual interest. If there was a more serious board, it's not that they would sack Arteta, but the things that you're doing good at, they would demand that you improve that even more. And the things that you're concerned, you'd obviously find a solution to such. I don't think they've got that. And this is where I think it's a mixed bag, because I do